everyone. It's Nick and Ron with another edition of Ask Ron. How you doing today, Ron?
I'm good, man, except I'm still cooped up.
Yep, can't wait to get back into the office. Although I'm going on vacation next week here. Might be doing this Ask Ron from the Keys next week.
Okay, well, you're allowed.
All right. So we got a few questions today from Gold Club members. First one is from Reggie in Florida. Reggie says, my understanding is that when buying a property on a land contract, the deed does not transfer to the buyer's name until the property is paid off. Since he doesn't have the deed, what would he prove ownership of the property since he does not have the deed? So,
good question, Reggie.
Sorry, go ahead.
Is that it?
I'll continue with the rest of it once you cover that part.
First of all, there's no land contract in Florida. It's called an agreement for deed, but it's the same thing. The deed does not transfer to you, the buyer, but ownership does. Legally, ethically, whole works even from the IRS point of view. So you prove ownership by using a copy of the agreement for deed.
Okay. He continues, similarly, if I wanted to file for homestead exemption, I imagine I would need a copy of the deed.
You probably will need a copy of the agreement for deed. But that's a phone call to your recording office and ask them. But there's really nothing else that I can see that you can provide them, other than maybe a closing statement. I'm sure they're going to want to see a copy of the agreement for deed.
Okay. And lastly, also, what factor would you buy a property on land contract instead of a wrap mortgage?
Well, I wouldn't, unless the seller just absolutely insisted on it, and that's the only way they're going to sell. And sometimes that's the case in other states. Frankly, in Florida, as far as I can see, an agreement for deed is worthless, because if I sell it with an agreement for deed and I have to take it back, I have to foreclose the same way as if I did a wraparound mortgage. So I don't know what it accomplishes. In other states, though, that's not really true. And in some states, it is the fastest way to get the property back, and it's used quite commonly. I'm thinking of Ohio and Michigan, for example. Short time to get it back, but if I were to sell it on a wraparound mortgage, that would be extended 3-4 times longer. So if I were selling, I would use a land contract in those two states. But if I'm buying, it doesn't do me any good as the buyer to buy on a land contract. I'd rather have the deed. So I'm going to make the offer using a wraparound mortgage or a wraparound deed of trust. It's only if they want to come back and say, we'll only do it on a land contract, that I would do it.
Okay. Next question from Yong. You've mentioned you don't recommend doing subject to nowadays to protect sellers and to prevent possible future problems. But can you list all scenarios where you would take over debt subject to instead of using a wraparound mortgage?
Sure, it's actually a good question. Got some good questions today. If, let's say, I run across the seller's credit is trashed, they don't care, there's no chance they're ever going to go qualify for another loan, I don't take the subject to, because there's nothing I can do to hurt them. Or let's say the kids have inherited a house, for example, and the parents are gone and the loan is in the parents' name. I'll take it subject to. There's no way we can hurt them in the future. But if I suspect that the seller is ever going to go qualify for another loan, I'm going to go ahead and buy it on a wraparound mortgage so they can get credit for that incoming payment to hopefully wash out their outgoing payment that would still be on their credit report. And pretty much anybody with good credit, I'm going to buy that. Well, I think they got good credit. I don't check their credit, but if I think they have good credit, I'm just going to buy it on a wrap. So I don't have to deal with that later.
All right. Is a second question from Yong is we buy houses using seller financing. My understanding is that we use wraparound mortgage if we live in a mortgage state such as Florida or New York, or an all-inclusive trust deed if we live in a deed of trust state such as Texas. I'm a little confused as to when we should use a land contract, land installment contract, agreement for deed, contract for deed, bond for deed. Can you explain?
Well, first of all, I think I just answered that. But you need to quit worrying about all those different names for this thing, because there's only one per state. It's whatever state you live in. It's an agreement for deed in Florida. It's an agreement for deed in Georgia. It's a contract for deed in Texas, the land contract. And there's only one term is all you got to learn, whatever state you're in. and just ask somebody that knows. And that's the one you'll use. And I just explained when I'd use a land contract and when I use a wraparound mortgage or deed of trust. And as I just said, I'm only going to use them if the seller forces me to.
Okay, next question is from Rob in Florida. When signing a purchase agreement at the seller's house, should I sign with my LLC name or with my name?
If you have an LLC, that's the name I would put at the top, and then you sign it as president of that LLC.
All right, Winnie from Florida. Is there a paragraph I can insert in a mortgage which permits the lender to get the property back without going through a foreclosure, where the borrower agrees to cooperate and return the deed?
No. You can put it in writing, you can do anything you want, but you can't circumvent their rights on that. And the lender's not going to take it back anyway unless they get a deed in lieu of foreclosure, and sometimes they won't do that. So a deed in lieu of foreclosure means the lender gets the property, but they cannot come after the borrower for any deficiency. That's why a lot of banks won't take a deed in lieu. So if the bank does take that, that's the best way to get out of it if you're going to anyway. But frankly, there's nothing you can put in your original agreement that is going to circumvent that process. And the bank, if they have to foreclose, they're going to foreclose anyway, unless they get a deed in lieu and they're willing to take it. You see, sometimes they'll just foreclose because they know they still have rights after the foreclosure to come after the debtor. And they do. They literally can come after the debtor for the full amount of the loan in many states and then go foreclose and get a judgment for the full amount of the loan. So that's state by state as well. But there's no tricks you're going to play. And back in my days when I was coming up, Nick, we used to get say I sold it with owner financing, we used to get a deed back from the buyer that an agreement that says we could record this deed if they defaulted. Well, that didn't take me long to find out that was not going to work either. That's a deed under duress and it's not enforceable, assuming the other side wants to challenge it. Of course, most of the time they don't, but it's still a deed under duress. So now there's no way you're going to circumvent the bank's rights here. And I'm not sure that was the intent of that question, but really it's a question you should be asking your good real estate attorney anyway, because there are some games you can play legally, but I would not be going to some seminar somewhere and do what they tell you without checking out the legality of where you're at.
Yeah, I think her question is more probably for herself to get the property back from her borrower. You know, she sold it on seller finance, somebody like that.
Have your borrower deed it back to you. That's all you have to do.
Yeah. So if they're willing to cooperate, you can do it, but you can't force them with a clause in the mortgage.
You can't circumvent that buyer's rights by something you agreed upon going in.
Right.
Under duress. It was condition of their purchase, and it's not going to be held up in court.
Okay. Next question is from Delroy in New York. If I am not using a VA since I am just starting out, should I and can do the property information sheet and the $1 million script in the same call with the seller?
Yes. I don't know what choice you have. Yes. Well, you got the seller on the phone, you get all the facts, but you also just go right to the $1 million script. You don't have to worry about chasing the seller because you get 100% contact that way. So absolutely. And in fact, I've got some students that are doing that on purpose. They'd rather take the calls and fill out the sheet and go right to the end of it right then and there while they have a relationship. It's more time consuming, but as a beginner, you can't get a VA. It's a good thing for you to do, most likely. Plus you get better at talking to the seller and you have a better relationship before you even ask the $1 million questions. Now, that's going to depend on your personality. My personality is I want to go right for the questions as fast as I can. I could waste more time getting all these other facts. Some people want to build a relationship first. Okay, both of them are right. It's whatever works for you. But, you know, it comes down to this. Like I just had this conversation yesterday with a young lady, and it's really this simple. If you have to have all of your cash the day you sell, I'm not your buyer. It's that simple. And so I want to get to that point as soon as I can. Because if they're not willing to wait on any money or they don't have any money coming. Remember, a lot of times you're doing a wraparound for what they owe and they have little or no money coming. Well, that's actually a little different conversation because they don't have to wait on anything. They don't have any money coming or it's a small amount and they're willing to wait on it. but they still have to leave that loan in their name while you do a wrap on it. You know, what I like doing is getting to the tough questions as fast as I can to see if I'm wasting my time on this call. And if I have to have all my cash now, I'm wasting my time on this call unless I can talk them out of it. So if they say, yeah, that's the only way I'm going to sell, I would use the script at the top of the no script. Well, listen, there's several ways I can buy your house, and there's a good reasons for you to let me tell you what they are. But if you have to have all of your cash now and you won't sell any other way, none of them will work. And then we're either in or we're out. I'm just a master pre-screener, and I want to get to the point quick. Don't I, Nick?
You do, you do. I'm a little bit on the opposite. I like to build a little bit of rapport there, but I actually, something I found that works pretty well for me, I just found it by accident, but it just gave me it got me past the hurdle of where they say, wait, are you an investor? And then you kind of shut down and don't want to maybe talk to you. I was actually looking for a house for my mother-in-law who was moving down from Michigan. So I kind of went with that. I use the same strategies that you teach, but and that would sometimes trigger that, wait, are you an investor? I'm like, well, yeah, I am, but in this case, I'm actually looking for a house for my mother-in-law, which opened them up a little bit more to dealing with me. And then, you know, so then I just started using that all the time. Even if I knew that house wouldn't work for her, and come in at the end say, oh, it's not going to work for her, but I can still buy it because I am an investor, and now you've already got a little bit of a relationship with them, and it kind of gets you past the hurdle there. I like it. I like to try doing something that you're telling the truth. I wouldn't say that you're doing that if you're not actually looking for a house for your mother-in-law, but you know, whatever you can use if you're looking for a new house for yourself, you know, I like to use that.
It's whatever you want to come up with to make you feel better about doing that transition. But you see, that kind of thing doesn't bother me. I'm just going to ask what I want to know. I'm not worried about what they think, and I don't care what they think. And you're not going to get that attitude until you've been at this a while and you realize, boy, they need you a whole lot more than you need them. I have the same, every day I'm calling agents on commercial property deals that my mastermind group are sending me every day. Every day I talk to agents, and it's the same process. I am in control of the conversation. I'm going to ask the questions I want to ask. I'm not going to put up with any bad attitudes on the other side. I'll just bring them right down real quick, although I don't really hardly ever have any, but they're very willing to talk. But I need to get the answers I need to get, and I don't care what they think. And in fact, you know what, Nick, I don't think I've ever had anybody ask me if I was an investor. Like what? Big surprise, I'm running an ad that I buy houses, and you're shocked to learn I'm an investor. I think all know. And of course, I don't know where your lead came from, but if they responded to my advertising, they know I'm an investor.
Yeah, these would be ones where I'm reaching out like on Zillow or something like that, or a VA source of lead.
Yeah, well, if I ever got asked that, my answer would be simple. Yeah, I'm an investor and I want to buy your house, not list it.
Yep.
Do you want to sell it? Well, good. To these questions.
Yeah, that's a good one too, because that's an objection that I get a lot, and I know that some of our students get. You know, especially if you're reading the same script and you sound like you're reading a script, then you're going to get that. Wait, are you an investor? Do you come from a seminar type stuff? But a little bit of confidence gets rid of that real quick. So.
Well, the 12 common mistakes you make on the phone are published on the Gold Club site, right?
Yeah, and actually we just updated that because we had 10. We had 10 mistakes, and I think you added 2 more in the Quick Start manual. So we updated that, and I believe it either went out in last week's weekly or it's going out in today's weekly. So check for that, and then it'll also be I think in our mentor magazine that you guys will receive. So
well, people keep making mistakes, so I have to go ahead. So how do they find that real quick? Do you remember the title of it?
Yeah, I believe it's called the 13 Most Important Minutes in a Real Estate Investor's Life.
Yeah, okay, something like that.
Why it was 13 minutes, and it was 10 mistakes, and now 12 mistakes, but that was the title.
Okay, you got any more?
We got one more question from John in Georgia, who says, how do you determine the right interest rate for seller financing? Do you use a sliding scale based on the down payment? This would be for subject to financing deal, $179,000 sales price and $15,000 down payment.
All right, John, you're confused. There really is no seller financing with a subject to deal, so you got me confused already. A subject to deal means that I'm just taking over the debt. There is no new document created by my attorney that I owe the seller any money. The seller just signs a deed and a closing statement, and they're gone. They have no more right toward the property, even though the loan stays in their name. And you start making the payment when you orally and morally agreed to start making it. There's no enforcement of that because there's no debt instrument where you owe them any money. So taking it subject to means the attorney doesn't create any kind of owner financing. Some people might call it owner financing because you're taking over their debt, but in reality, the owner's not financing it. The owner's bank is financing it for you without you applying and without you being personally liable. So what was the rest part of that question having to do with the owner financing?
Well, he was asking about the interest rate that he's trying to.
Oh, interest rates.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's going to vary on your deal. And I assume we're talking about when we're buying. We're talking about when we're buying and the seller has an underlying loan. My interest rate on the total debt I owe the seller, not my interest rate, but my amount of interest that I pay the seller is going to be exactly the amount they pay on the underlying loan. I'm going to give them that minute to have that one sink in. So let's say I owe the seller $300,000 and the seller owes $200,000 underneath. So I have a wraparound mortgage done for $300,000. Means the seller's got $100,000 worth of equity in this thing. But my language in my contract is going to say that the principal and interest payments on that $300,000 debt will match the principal and interest payments on that $200,000 debt, which technically means the seller's not getting any interest or principal on that $100,000 gap until we get them paid off. So in effect, my answer would be zero interest is the best interest I know on the amount you owe the seller. And of course, whatever rate the bank is charging on the rest. If the house is free and clear, I'm going to start with, well, not even going to bring up interest. I'll pay you X number of dollars per month until you're paid off. Okay, if they don't ask me, what about interest? That's the way it's going to be written. It's all principal. People pay interest when they let that come out of their mouth and they think interest has to be done or has to be some part of the deal or it's illegal if you don't pay interest or any of that other nonsense that people talk about. They have no idea what they're talking about. Any kind of deal I can make between the seller and me is legal. I mean, I guess we could find ways to make it illegal, but what I pay them is totally irrelevant to the law. So if I can get away with no interest, man, that's one of them golden geese I want to hold on to. But if they come back and they say, what about interest? And I'm going to say, why do you need interest? If I pay you interest, you have to pay taxes on it. Don't you pay enough taxes now? What's more important to you, the payment or the interest? So I'm more worried about the payment. And so is interest a deal killer for you? Now, if they come back and say, I got to have some kind of interest, what do you think I'm going to say? Well,
how close can you?
What do you think I'm going to say when they give me an answer? Oh, is that the best you can do? Oh, yeah. Banks don't charge that much. Okay. Anyway, that's the game.
Okay.
When you're not so scared out of your wits, you're afraid to even talk, or you're afraid to play this game. Notice that whenever I'm talking to a seller, I'm always asking questions and I'm preaching or teaching to him. That's one of the big mistakes on the 12 you mentioned.
All right. That was the last of the questions, Ron.
That's it. All right.
Yeah.
Let's bring them up to date on this, how it relates to what we're doing. We've already made the commitment to do the June, we used to call it the Orlando Boot Camp, but it won't be done in Orlando, but it will be broadcast. The Quick Start School, we're going to do another one virtual, except we're adding another half day where Jay Connor and I are going to go out into the field with some ugly houses and film the whole thing like we would if we were out in the field on the live boot camp. So we haven't done that before. And so that'll be added 2 to 3 days. So it'll probably be 3.5 days right now. All virtual. You can register for that. I got some great deals on it. Call our office. Now, Nick, what is the 4-hour event? What day is that? That's June the 11th. Isn't it?
Right. June 11th. It's 5 hours.
5 hours.
Deal structuring in there.
Okay. So that's June the 11th. And what time is that? From what to what?
Noon to 5 Eastern.
Noon to 5 Eastern. And you Californians owe me for this because it's strictly for you. Starting at noon is, you know, middle of the day for us. So I'm going to, during that time, that's more for folks who are entering the business. You folks that have been through my quick start school, you've heard that before, but it's all about how we make money in this business. I'll show you some examples. I'll show you why it does not take your money, and I'll show you why going to the bank and borrowing money is ridiculously dumb to do our business. And we're going to be talking about the pretty houses and the pretty neighborhoods and where the biggest and the best money is made and how to get many, many times the money you'll ever get on any wholesale or rehab deal with a fraction of the grief. We're going to talk about a business which most people are ignoring because they are in the ugly house business. Quick flip, get a check, and they really have no idea how much damage they're doing to themselves by selling that property and cashing out of it right away. There's so much more wealth in it, and look, you'll make as much or more money on the front end on the pretty house deals. You'll make money in the middle, and you'll make money on the back end, and you'll grow wealth and get depreciation and appreciation and debt pay down and all those goodies you just don't get with the wholesales and the rehabs that you hear so much about. I still do those, but my specialty is the pretty house business, and I'm going to spend 4 hours with you doing just that. Now, in addition to that, we're going to let our attendees know that you can submit leads to us, and I'll have our mentors call them. I'm going to have 1 hour of deal structuring, and that's it, 1 hour. So I can only handle 5 or 6 deals that the mentors negotiate. So it's first come, first serve on that, and we'll pull up some deals. And you know, if you send some in, it might be you that we get them, and I want to go over those during that hour, say exactly what we do with them. That's enough for now. Oh, commercial boot camp is also going to be virtual at June 30th for the first time ever. So make a note on that one. We don't know when we're going to go back into a live room, but it won't be long.
And I wanted to mention on that 5-hour deal we're doing, that's you're going to be focusing a lot on how we're doing it in today's environment, like in COVID environment, and
yes,
virtual. So it'll apply for now, you know, through what we're going through now, but also the future if you want to do this thing virtually. You know, we're going to be focusing on that a lot. So even if you have been to Quick Start, it would be good to get back and watch this. Did you tell them how much it was, Ron?
huh?
Did you tell them how much it was?
Oh, the 4-hour event, 5-hour event.
Yeah.
What was it? $1,000 or something like that?
I think we got you down a little bit.
It's free. It's free. It's free. It's free. Okay, so it costs you nothing. No, that's not true for the Quick Start School or commercial, but we got some great deals. So call in the office and get registered. Well, you won't get these shots. I'll tell you right now, once we get back in a room, there won't be any more virtual boot camps. I like them live. So much different, so much better. Okay.
And then last thing is next week for Ask Ron, we're actually doing it live. It's 2 hours on June 4th, and it's from 10 a.m. to 12 Eastern. So we're taking live. So any questions you submit, we're going to ask live on June 4th, which is Thursday. Then we'll put the recording, of course, in the weekly report for you, just like we do now. But we're going to be answering those live, so you can get on. We'll put the links to register for that below this video. But what we want you to do is, instead of submitting questions, typing them into email like you're doing now, if you could get your phone out, record a video, maybe 20, 30 seconds of you asking the question, then we can pop you up on the screen next to Ron and he'll answer it live. So I think that'll be cool.
Yeah, I do too. Now, you must be wearing clothes in this video. That will make you famous.
We would appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll put you up here on the screen while we're answering the video. Hey, you be thinking you're watching Fox News, man. All right, is that it?
Yep, that's all I got, Ron.
Okay, well, I'll see you all next week. Have a good week. Don't let this COVID thing get you, and don't think for a minute it's going to stop you from buying houses, because my folks are out there more active than ever.
All right.
See you.
Bye, everyone.